Hello, I'm Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a slightly different video, well, a video that's on a different topic that I don't normally speak about, and that is the Bridgerton books. I'm going to be ranking all of the books that we've got and also the series that we have so far. This is because I've recently become really obsessed with the books because I am just really excited for the next season of Bridgerton, and being impatient I decided to read the books to find out what happens. And yeah, I really enjoyed most of them, and I wanted to do a video ranking them because I find it really entertaining and really fun. So yes, a few little disclaimers before we get in. Obviously this is just my opinion. Everyone's going to have different views on the books. They're going to find different things more interesting or exciting than other people. And also, I am somebody who has watched the show before reading the books, so my impression and idea of the characters are going to be different because they have changed the characters slightly from the books to the TV show. So when I'm reading these books, sometimes the characters just feel a bit different, and I'm thinking like, this isn't what that character would do, because I've got this idea of them in my head from the show. So yes, I just wanted to say that before we begin. I'm going to be ranking the 8 Bridgerton books we've got and the 3 series of the show. So the first 2 Bridgerton series and then the Queen Charlotte one. Just so I really enjoyed the shows and I want to talk about that because my channel mainly is talking about television, so it makes sense to talk about them. For the ranking system, I have gone in order of like gemstone things. The diamond of the season, diamond is the top category, and then I've just kind of gone for valued gems after that, so emerald, ruby, pearl and amethyst. I was gonna put just like a pebble on the last one, but I thought that was a bit unfair because there wasn't any that I really disliked. So I think all of them had something special about them, but some I just enjoyed way more and I think are just so much better stories than others. Obviously this video is going to have spoilers in, so if you haven't seen the show or read the books and don't know what happens, then please don't watch this video. I'm going to go in order. So if you've wanted to see my opinion about the first couple of series, then stay watching and then just leave when you don't want to hear any more. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. So to begin with, we have the first Bridgerton book and the first Bridgerton show. I'm kind of grouping these together because a lot of my opinion about these are kind of the same because they are quite similar, the book to the TV show. So I'll just be repeating myself if I talk about them separately. So first of all, with the book, what I really liked is that it set up the family and the world very well. I think Lady Whistledown adding in her comments with the little thing before each chapter, I thought that was really interesting. So we got to hit little excerpts out of what Lady Whistledown is saying. I really enjoyed that. I thought it worked really well for the book. It's very similar to the narration that we have in the show. However, I definitely feel like it goes a bit more in depth into what Lady Whistledown is saying and gives you the actual bits from the columns rather than just seeing the characters' reaction to what's being said. It follows a very similar plot to the show. I think there's very similar things. They've got great chemistry in both the book and the show, which is really interesting. I definitely feel like the characters stayed the same. There's not that many differences between the book Daphne and Simon and the show Daphne and Simon, which is quite nice, especially as it's the first adaptation. Making changes as you go on makes more sense. I definitely feel like they've stuck to the books as well as they could in the first one, which I think was really good. And I do think the fake dating trope works well in both the book and the show. It's a really fun trope to have, and again, a good beginning one as well, because there are a lot of tropes in all throughout the books. Obviously, it's a romantic book series, so of course there's going to be romantic tropes, but I do think that's a good one to start off with. It's quite fun, and there's lots of room for drama and stuff like that. And also the whole pretending to be in love and then falling in love is quite fun as well. There are some things that I didn't really like about the book. The first thing is that there's not that many side plots. Going into the books, I was expecting it to be quite similar to the show in the fact that we kind of have a much bigger exploration of the Bridgerton world and the other characters. Like the Featheringtons are really big in the show. However, they're just kind of side characters, not even side characters, they're just characters that are talked about. Apart from Penelope, we don't really get that much writing about the Featheringtons or anything else. Marina isn't in this, Queen Charlotte isn't in this, the prince isn't in it, so it's very different, and I wasn't really expecting that. I know the focus is on the main romance, the main couple, but I definitely enjoy the show the way that the show explores the other characters a lot more. It makes the world feel more real and more developed, whereas there's just so many just names thrown about in the books, where obviously, because I've seen the show, I know who these characters are, but you don't really get that much exploration about them in the book. In both the book and the show, for the first Bridgerton book, there is one major thing that just makes me hate it. And yeah, I can't really... It's the R-word scene in both the book and the show. I didn't think it could get worse than the show, but it does. The actual act is worse in the book. He's drunk, and it's definitely more of like taking advantage of him. Like, it's bad in both, but it's worse in the book. However, in the book, she does seem to get like punished more. Like, they properly like separate, and he's angry with her. He goes off and he's like, just let me know if you're pregnant and we'll go from there. Like, they pretty much break up their relationship, which I think definitely makes Daphne think about it a bit more. She never fully regrets what she did, but at least there's some sort of punishment and not this kind of half punishment and half we're still together, we're still in love kind of thing that happens in the show. I just didn't really enjoy that part of it. Like, the overall plot and concept of the book is really good, but yeah, that scene just really ruins it for me, because I just think everything after that happens just leaves a sour taste in my mouth because of what she did. I understand this idea that they're both in the wrong because he deceived her and then she did something horrible to him, but I just think something like that is unforgivable, and there are definitely ways that they could explore that deception and Daphne figuring out what happens in a completely different way, that doesn't make me not like the main character. Like, she's somebody that's supposed to be this perfect character that you adore, and I think showing her as not perfect and doing stupid things is good, but to me it just ruined her character for me. I just didn't enjoy that. So for both of these, I'm going to put them in the middle, because they definitely had really good things, but that just really lost it for me. And also, as I said, with the characters, that the side characters not really getting explored that much. We don't really get anything of Eloise and Penelope's relationship friendship in the book. Even that's one of my favourite things in the show. I love those two together, so that was a bit annoying. There's also not really that much Lady Danbury. She's mentioned, but she isn't really in it at all, which is a shame, because again, I really like her character. But yeah, as I said, they're going in the middle in Ruby, which I think is quite good. Like, it's a good average. It's a good place to start, and yeah, there are definitely ones that I don't like as much as that book and show. So that's where they're going. So the next one we have is Bridgerton Series 2 and the book version, which is The Viscount Who Loved Me. I loved the series. I thought this one was so good. I wasn't the biggest fan after watching the first season of Bridgerton. I enjoyed it, but it didn't really leave me like really hoping for a second season. However, once I did watch the second season, I thought it was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed this one. It's definitely got its faults, but overall, I thought it was really, really good. The differences in the book. So what I liked about the book, Kate and Edwina are so much better written in the book. Like, I enjoy their characters so much more. Edwina is smart. She wants to marry somebody intelligent that she can have a conversation with. She wants a love match. It's so good. And she knows, quite sadly, she knows her purpose in her family is to marry well so that she can provide for her family. And I think that's a really interesting concept, because she's not that interested in Anthony. She just, pursues him, but like, she's interested in him because he can provide for Kate and her mum, which I think is really interesting. And when Kate and Anthony have to get married, Edwina is excited for her, and she's excited for herself, because she knows now that Kate's fulfilled this obligation to provide for her family so that she can now have this love match. And I think that's a really nice exploration of this sibling relationship, in opposed to what we have in the show, which is Kate pretty much forcing Edwina and deceiving Edwina into marrying Anthony when she knows that Anthony likes her or is attracted to her and won't ever fully love Edwina, and that Edwina will just feel constantly second place. And I understand why Kate made those decisions and kind of kept up this facade, But it's just something so horrible knowing what Edwina's marriage would have been like. She would have been fine, she would have been content, but she wouldn't have ever been like happy. Some other things I liked about the book compared to the show is that we got a much bigger development of the character's backstory. So we have Kate having this severe fear of thunderstorms, and that led to a really nice romantic moment with Anthony when he protects her and helps her get over this fear, which I thought was really good. They're both very similar, and I definitely think their similarities are drawn a lot more in the book compared to the show. Obviously in the show they focus a lot more on this obligation, this family obligation that they both have, being the eldest. But in the show, they've also got intense fears that they were able to bond over. Anthony and his fear of bees, which resulted due to his father's death as he was stung by a bee. And Kate has this intense fear of thunderstorms because her mum died during a thunderstorm and she witnessed it. And both of those are so heartbreaking, and I think they explore it in a really nice way. And yeah, so I really enjoyed all of that. Things I didn't like about the book. They are forced to marry because they are caught in a compromising situation, which is when he's sucking the bee poison out of her chest, and that was a bit kind of repetitive for me. We've gone from a forced marriage in the first book because they were caught in a compromising position, and now we've got the same thing in the second book. It's just not that romantic having these like forced weddings and forced marriages. I'd much rather they marry for love and, you know, it be a choice of theirs. Anthony is also very demanding and can sometimes be a bit aggressive in the books. So he gets frustrated that she asks to wait a week before consummating their marriage, and he refers to it as his right to do, and it's just not, I just don't really like that bit. There's also a scene where she's hiding under a desk because she's like snooping around his office, and he comes in and he kind of kicks under the table, and I didn't really like that either. So for the book, I'm going to put that in 3 as well, because yes, I did really enjoy it, but I just didn't really like Anthony's characterization in this book. Again, it was a bit too demanding, and again, the forced marriage I just didn't really enjoy that. So yeah, that's going to go into 3 as well. As for the show, even though I prefer the sibling relationship in the book, I'm going to put this in 1 level higher. So there are a few reasons for this. First of all, they marry because they love each other, not because they're caught. It's something that they choose to do, and I just feel like we get a lot more chemistry from them. Like he hates that he loves her, and I think that's a really better thing that we can explore. Rather in the show, is they get married and he just takes ages to realise that he likes it. Only takes her almost dying for him to realise he loves her, even though he's been married to her for ages. I also like the fact that Daphne catches them looking at each other but doesn't tell anybody, even though it's so obvious that they're in love with each other. It's just such a different response that Anthony had when he caught Daphne and Simon. I understand why, but I definitely respect Daphne a lot for that. As I said, the chemistry is so strong, even stronger than in the first season. The dances are incredible, the stolen glances, Anthony's just obsessed with her, and I think it's just really romantic, and I really like it. However, they do focus a bit too much on the love triangle. I think they kind of force that a bit too much, whereas I definitely liked it with Edwina just being so excited for them. The wedding episode as well, that kind of dragged on a bit too much for me. But I really want to see more of them in the next series, which I believe we are. Definitely Edwina as well, because I'd love to see who she eventually ends up with, whether it is the prince, as Queen Charlotte kind of sets up in the series, or whether it's somebody in an intellectual who she actually marries in the books. But yeah, so I really enjoyed that. So that's going to go in Emerald. So yeah, we'll pop that there. The next book is An Offer from a Gentleman, which is Benedict's story. I had such high hopes for this one, but I think I'm going to upset a lot of book fans. I just didn't enjoy this one that much. There are quite a few reasons for that. Let's go into things I liked first, because be a bit positive. Sophie, the love interest, is fantastic. I love her character. It's very much a Cinderella story. She is the illegitimate child of a nobleman and is working as a servant in the Bridgerton house, eventually. she doesn't, yeah. So I think this situation that they set up is quite interesting. And this like forced proximity, working in the house that he lives in. And I think there's lots of interesting bits. I really loved the scene where they meet on the balcony and they're dancing together, talking about secrets. I think that bit was really interesting. And the fact that she knows who he is and he doesn't know who she is when they meet again later. So I really enjoyed that. Another thing I really enjoyed about this book is they begin to intertwine with other stories, most notably Colin and Penelope. This is the bit where we have Colin say that he's never going to marry Penelope, and Penelope overhears, and I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really good. And Violet is a much stronger character in this as well. We also get a lot more interaction with the other Bridgerton siblings because she's working in their house, so she's meeting them, so I really like that. I also like the trope that they both save each other. So he saves her from an attack and then she nurses him to health when he's ill. So all of that I loved. Really, really good. Very, very promising. Now, there's a lot of things I didn't like about this as well. First of all, Cinderella's story I think is a bit overdone. The whole evil step-siblings, evil stepmother, forced to work as a servant. It's a bit overdone. We've seen it done loads of times before, and I didn't really like that. When I started reading it, it was a bit like, oh my god, we're actually doing this Cinderella thing. The whole lost glove. It didn't work for me. I just didn't really enjoy it that much. The biggest thing that I didn't like is that Benedict isn't a good person in this book at all. He does some good things, like he saves her from an attack, which is really the bare minimum. But yeah, he forces Sophie to work as the servant in their house, even though she very clearly says that she doesn't want to do this and she's fine by herself. And he also wants her to be his mistress. Yeah, it leaves a really sour taste in my mouth. Like, he's wanting to put her in a very precarious situation. Like, if she ever gets pregnant, like, she will be ruined. She will be left with an illegitimate child. And she very, very clearly says that she doesn't want to be his mistress. And even though he doesn't know the reason why she doesn't want to be somebody's mistress, he just doesn't take no for an answer, and he should. He has no regard for what she wants. She, again, like I said, she very clearly tells him what she wants, and he just doesn't have any regard for her feelings whatsoever. And also this whole thing about wanting her to be his mistress when he's holding out on this other random girl that he met at this balcony, which is her. But yeah, and then he gets mad at her for keeping this secret, even though, like, again, she's made it very clear she doesn't want to be his mistress, even though she loves him. So yeah, Benedict sucks in this book, and I can understand why people enjoy parts of it, but I just really didn't like Benedict. Benedict in the show is amazing. He's so fun and silly, and we don't get anything from that in this book. Even the part about him being an artist, it's not really that interesting in the book. Like, he's got these drawings that he does and she sees them and she's like, oh, he's actually a really good artist, and she tells him to pursue art more, which I think was really nice. But I just didn't really enjoy it. And I also think that their first scene was a bit icky. Just, yeah, when they do it for the first time and he's like, yes, she's my mistress now, and she's like, no, it's a mistake, and he's just really angry all the time. And yeah, I don't like it. It's going in Pearl because Sophie redeems it, Violet redeems it, and again, I liked the idea of her working in the Bridgerton house. I think that it's set up really nicely, but yeah, Benedict's just a menace, and he ruins this book for me. Next one is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which is Colin and Penelope's story. This is the book that I wanted to read, but I had to read it in order because you don't know what you're missing out on if you don't read it in order. Because I've seen lots of people talk about wanting to read the books and then they just read the book of the character that they want to read about. But it definitely makes the experience a lot better if you read from the beginning, because there are little tidbits about the characters as you go. This one was by far my favourite one. I was so excited for this one, and it didn't let me down. So first of all, Colin is just hilarious. He's such a good character. I really like his development throughout the show. He does have some flaws, which I'll get into in a bit, But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. So yeah, Colin, very funny. He's very like hungry all the time, which I think is a really funny thing that they have in all of the books. They keep bringing it up, which I think is really fun. I also love that this book happens like a few years after the next one. So Penelope is like 26 in this book, so there's a big time jump, which obviously they're not going to do in the show. But one of the things I love about this is that he doesn't fall for her because she loses weight and has a glow up, which is very typical when we come to like romance books. But he falls in love with her because she becomes more confident in herself. She's free from like societal expectations. She's happily a spinster. She's not got anything on her mind to do with relationships. So she's able to like relax and be herself. She's acting how she's told to act to find a man, whereas when she's able to act herself, he falls in love with her. And there's lots of really nice romantic things in this. Like, one thing I noticed that I really enjoyed was that every time he talks about her eyes, he goes more and more in depth about how gorgeous they are. And I think that's really nice and a really subtle way of showing like the progress of how much he falls in love with her. I just thought that was really, really nice, and he just becomes obsessed with her, which I cannot wait to have that in the show. Obviously, with Penelope being Lady Whistledown, this is only revealed in this book, whereas we found out in the end of the first series, which I think was quite interesting. I definitely like exploring how she's able to be Lady Whistledown. And Eloise doesn't find out in the books. Colin is the one that finds out because, again, he's so obsessed with her. He begins noticing her more, noticing where she's going, and he gets a bit concerned because she's going into like a dodgy place, and follows her and finds out. And to be fair, I think he deals with the situation fairly well. Like, he does get angry at her for it, but my interpretation of it is that he's angry because he's scared for her, and he's scared for what will happen if people find out, rather than being disgusted by her and her actions. It's very much a concern, which I quite like. I know I've seen some criticism that he's a bit angry, but I definitely feel like he's less angry than all the other characters, and he deals with it in a lot better way. Like, he is aware of it, and he's aware of his flaws and tries to fix them. There's also, I think, some of the most memorable scenes in this book. The carriage scene was really fun. The proposal I really liked. I thought that really took me by surprise. And also there's that whole mirror scene, which I think is quite interesting. And I know Nicola Coughlan has hinted that all these things are going to happen, which is quite exciting. One of my favourite scenes in this book, which is quite sad, but one of my favourite scenes is when Colin asks the Featheringtons to ask permission to marry her. And it's hilarious because she just doesn't accept, Lady Featherington just doesn't accept that he wants to marry Penelope and not the other sister, who doesn't exist in the show. She's like her younger sister, but yeah, she doesn't exist in the show, so I don't know if they're going to do that. But it was so funny, but so tragically sad. But yeah, as for flaws, the only flaw that I have is that Colin does come across a little bit angry and jealous at some points. However, as I said, I feel like he's definitely angry because she's put herself in a dangerous situation. As for jealous, he's just jealous and insecure that he hasn't made those efforts to write. Kind of like what we have with Eloise, is that, you know, Penelope says that she's jealous because she isn't brave enough to do this. And that's what I get with Colin as well. And he eventually publishes his writings about his travels, which I think was really nice. And also, another thing I loved was the reveal of Lady Whistledown to everybody else. Like, he is so proud of her at the end. And the reveal on the balcony in front of everybody, just amazing. So this one is going in diamond. So good. I love this one so much. Next is To Sir Phillip with Love, which is Eloise's story. And again, I think I'm going to really upset some book fans with my opinions about this one. But as I said, I'm going in with this with show Eloise in my head. And book Eloise is quite different. So what did I like about this book? The general idea of this book I really liked. It's kind of set up a bit in the first one with Eloise writing these letters. But the idea of her writing these letters and falling in love with somebody through the letters I thought was really nice. Him sending her flowers was really sweet. And I had really high hopes for this one going into it in the first few chapters. And her running off to find him. I was really invested to start off with. But anyway, I love the way that she was able to take a risk for love as somebody who is very much against the idea of marriage and like society's expectations of her. it makes a lot of sense to me that she would run off and like elope and run off to find somebody. I really liked that. Eloise having an unconventional relationship makes sense. And Sir Phillip is all right. I like the way it explores like the complexity of his grief, the way he internalizes his grief and his sadness and hides himself away from everybody. I think it's really interesting. I'll get into what I don't like about that. But there is one scene in this book which is probably one of my favourite scenes out of any of them, which is when the Bridgerton brothers all run in and storm up and confront Phillip for basically stealing away Eloise. I just thought that was really funny. It's a great insight into the family and something I really hope they bring over to the show, because I can so imagine the actors doing that very, very well. Like, I could see them in my head doing it. It was just perfect writing. Thought it was really good. Okay, so what didn't I like? There's a lot I didn't like about this one. So first of all, I don't like Phillip very much. Like, again, he's fine at some points, but so if you haven't read the book and you don't mind it getting spoiled, he is married to somebody called Marina, who is the same Marina that we have in series 1. Marina K-words herself by trying to drown herself in a lake, which makes me scared for what is going to happen to Marina in the show, because again, she's not a character that we ever meet. She's just a character that used to exist. We don't really get a big exploration about why she did that, apart from the fact that she was always quite quiet and seemed quite sad, whereas it definitely seemed like some sort of postpartum thing. Again, they don't really go into it too much. But yes, he shows little regard to her death and her depression. He only really talks about how it impacts him, that he is left with these children that she never really cared for, because she probably had postpartum depression of some sort, or, you know, she was obviously very, very depressed, but he definitely resents her for that. Another thing I don't like about him is because he only really sees Eloise / women as mothers and wives. The reason he looks for a wife and the reason he asks her to marry him is because he wants somebody to look after his children. And I don't really like that at all. It really makes me sad that he didn't keep the letters. He definitely didn't have any romantic interest in her and only wanted her to look after his children. And that makes me really sad, because Eloise has risked it all, like her reputation, her honour, like she's put her family at risk as well for somebody that doesn't even keep her letters. That made me really, really sad. And he doesn't really have any respect for her at the beginning. Already throughout the book, he's shocked that she's pretty. The thought of somebody not wanting to get married is apparently beyond him. And the only reason that he thinks that she'd never get married is because she's not pretty enough. And he's also constantly wanting Eloise to tone it down. He thinks she's too chatty and hates how she voices her opinions. And again, we have another forced marriage, which again, I don't like. She's basically forced into being a stepmother. He also didn't tell her that he had kids when he proposed, because he proposed in the letters. Just sprung that upon her. This one is going to be the most difficult for them to translate into the show, because Phillip needs a lot of work, and I don't know what they're going to do with Marina. But I did not like this one. Again, there are a few things that I did like. The kids are quite fun. The whole pranking her was kind of fun. It went a bit too far in the end. Again, I just felt really sorry for Eloise, that she's been thrown into this with a man who has very little respect for her, and kids who treat her just treat her horribly, and she's just stuck there. Like, again, they fall in love and it's all fine and whatever, but I just didn't really like this one at all, so that's going in at the bottom tier. Next we have When He Was Wicked. So this is Francesca's story, and we don't really see much about Francesca in the show, and I was quite disappointed by that, but there's definitely a reason for that. One of the things they explore in the show is Francesca feeling like an outcast from her family, not in terms of anything that they've done to her, but just she feels so different from them. She marries somebody, moves to Scotland. She definitely feels different from the rest of her family, which kind of explains her absence in the show. I know a big part of it was because the actress was doing Lockwood & Co., which I'm very annoyed that was cancelled, but she's doing that, so like her availability wasn't great, which is why she's been replaced. It does make sense, but I kind of hope we get more of her before she gets married, which I definitely feel like will happen in the next series. So this is the one that I am quite precious about. If you haven't read the books and don't mind it getting spoiled, Francesca marries somebody called John, moves to Scotland with him 2 years after they get married. I think, oh my god, yeah, on that anniversary he dies of a mysterious illness, and it's very, very sad. John has a cousin called Michael who has been in love with Francesca since before John and Francesca got married, and doesn't tell her about it. And then like 4 years after his death, they get together. And it's a very, it's definitely like slow burn, which I think was quite a nice difference to the other ones. So yeah, there's loads of things I like about this. I really loved that Francesca and Michael's relationship didn't overshadow or take away anything from her and John's love. They were both valid and fulfilling relationships, and I'm so glad there wasn't any infidelity or anything like that, because that would have really soured it for me. But yeah, I really like this. We've got lots of good tropes in this. We've got like, you know, best friends to lovers and unrequited love tropes. It was very good, and I really liked that Michael respected Francesca and John's relationship. He didn't try to pursue her when she was married. In fact, he really kept his distance. And when John did die, he didn't immediately pounce and try and marry her. He respected it, and he left the country because he didn't want to be tempted to pursue her. This book is a lot sadder than all the other ones. We deal with a lot of things. So obviously the loss of her husband and her grief in relation to that. If you don't want to hear about pregnancy loss or anything, then probably skip this section. But there is a lot of exploration of her experience with miscarriages and infertility, because she, even though all the Bridgerton seem to be very fertile, she just cannot have children. It takes her ages to have a child, which we only find out that she has a child in the epilogue, which was released years after the book. So she has a miscarriage a few weeks after John dies, which was very, very sad. And I didn't like it, but I thought it was interesting and realistic that the main conversation about her pregnancy and her miscarriage was that Michael got to inherit John's title rather than her baby. But yeah, it was very, very sad. And also Michael has an illness. He has malaria, and he is ill. So Francesca goes from having a husband die from an illness to falling in love with somebody who is also quite ill. And obviously, I talked about Francesca feeling the odd one out in her family. She doesn't get invited to Penelope and Colin's wedding or Eloise and Phillip's wedding. And I just didn't really like that. I thought that was really sad. But again, it was quite a good contrast to all the other books. Not everything being perfect, but them making do of it and having a happy life in spite of it. One of the things I really liked about this is their friendship, and I also really enjoyed them having like a proper relationship before they got married, which I liked. And because she's so respected by the people who work at her house, that nobody really tells on her. They're not forced to get married. Michael and John's mums were fantastic. There was they gave her the love and support that her family weren't able to because they were far away, and again, she kind of felt a bit outcast. And there's one bit right at the end when John's mum puts in a letter and thanks her for letting John love her first, which I thought was really sweet. But yeah, this was just a fantastic one. It's definitely the one that I'm most precious about. I don't really want them to change anything. The only things that I would change, and the one thing that I didn't really like about the book, is that we don't get any exploration of Francesca and John's relationship. We don't really know how they meet, what they're like together. It's like just the first chapter that we see of them being together, and half of that is her and Michael talking. We don't really know much about how they met and what their relationship was like at the beginning, which I hope they include in the show. But apart from that, I don't really want them to change anything, because I definitely feel this book was really, really good, and I'm going to put it in diamond. It was just really, it was fantastic. Next up is In His Kiss, which is Hyacinth's story. And again, we don't really know too much about Hyacinth in the show yet, but she's such a fun character. She is just great. I really like her. She's very strong-willed, and she's best friends with Lady Danbury, which I really enjoyed. That kind of took me by surprise. I'm really happy that she was included in the books a bit more, which is probably why she's included so much in the show, because she has so much development in this book that they're able to use it in the show as well. The plotline, very silly. The mystery of this diary that she's translating for Gareth, the love interest, hunting for the jewels, breaking into houses. Yeah, it was very, very silly, and it does contrast well with what we just had with When He Was Wicked, but it also contrasts very well to this abusive father plotline that we have with Gareth, and this idea that he's potentially illegitimate. I loved the plotline with Lady Danbury. She's such a great character, and yeah, I love their friendship and Lady Danbury adopting her as a granddaughter and kind of scheming to get them together as well. So that I really liked. Overall, I thought this one was quite good. There's, lots of things I enjoyed. There's a couple of things I didn't enjoy. For example, Gareth sometimes can be a little bit iffy. When they do it for the first time, he treats that as he's kind of like trapped her into marriage, and she has to marry him now. She can't escape if she finds out that I'm illegitimate. That I didn't really like. I thought, it was just a bit iffy. But overall, I liked the less serious tone of this book. With the plotline was quite fun. It being a mystery about who his dad is, and them working out together. I like that. Even though their relationship is very, very strong in the book, we've kind of got this mystery being the centre of it, which I thought was quite a different take on it. It's not the relationship is the forefront of the book, but it doesn't really feel like it sometimes. We've definitely got this mystery about it. And I like that she is obsessed with finding these jewels, and when we get the epilogues as well, and all her exploring for it and trying to find the jewels after all this time, she never lets it go. Hyacinth is such a strong character, and she's often treated, especially by Gregory and other characters, make comments about how she's difficult. But I just think, she's a strong-willed young woman who is trying her hardest to make her life her own, how she wants it. And I hate that that's called being difficult. She's strong-willed and she's independent, and I think that's a really nice character to have. It's no wonder why her and Lady Danbury are really good friends. So yeah, I like that. I definitely enjoyed it better. And I'm going to put it in 3 as well, because I liked Hyacinth a lot, and the plotline was very good. But yeah, sometimes Gareth has really got on my nerves a bit. The next one is On the Way to the Wedding, which is Gregory's story. There's a lot I liked about this. I really enjoyed this one. Gregory is really, really wanting to have a love match because he's the last of his family to get married, and everyone's had love matches, and he wants a love match, and he becomes obsessed with this idea, and he eventually falls in love with the idea of somebody and tries to pursue her and this idea that he wants her to be, and he eventually falls in love with the best friend Lucy, who I think Lucy is a fantastic character again. She's just an interesting character. Again, she's quite strong-willed, but she is always wanting to follow the rules and do what she thinks is best for her family. She puts everybody else before herself, but not in a subservient way, in more of a I want everyone to be happy, I want to do what's right for people, which I think is a really nice characteristic. Does get her into trouble though, and this one does actually have some dark elements as well. There is blackmail and things threatened to her. It's quite scary at some points. Obviously we know reading it that nothing bad's actually going to happen, but there is a real threat to her. Yeah, so I really love Lucy, and I love their relationship together. He becomes obsessed with her and crashes her wedding, and kidnaps her, in an attempt to save her. It's wild. He is unhinged, but in kind of the best way, in the most fun way, and it's never kind of what we have with Benedict, where he essentially kidnaps Sophie. He does that for his own gain, whereas Gregory kidnaps Lucy not just for his own gain because he wants to marry her, but because she is in legitimate danger. The idea that she is being forced to marry a gay man, which isn't the issue, like she's fine with that generally, but it's because she's been lied to. But yeah, I don't really have any major complaints. I think both the characters are really fun and entertaining. The chemistry between them is great, and Kate is in this one a lot, which I really enjoyed. And yeah, so all of that I really liked, and I like that everybody realises that they're in love before they do. And that I really enjoyed. Him crashing the wedding was just so funny. He just runs off and the family's trying to control him, but they can't. I just thought all of that was really entertaining. I'm going to put this in Emerald because even though I do really enjoy it and I don't really have any major complaints, it just isn't as good as the two that I've put at the top. Yeah, like Gregory is unhinged and it's definitely the most wild book. I didn't really expect any of that to happen. But yeah, I thought it was very entertaining. And last but certainly not least, we have Queen Charlotte, which is the Bridgerton spin-off. I didn't really have that high hopes for this one because I thought it was weird that they were doing a spin-off so soon, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I thought there were so many wonderful things about this. The idea that, again, we've got another forced marriage, but it's more of like an arranged marriage thing. And again, I'm not the biggest fan of that, but these two characters just have insane chemistry. And I liked the idea that she cares for him and loves him despite his illness. And for me, what makes this one is even though the main two characters, the main couple, are so incredible together, we've also got a lot of exploration with the other characters, like Lady Danbury's story and this idea of making society more equal, which I thought was quite interesting. We've also got the relationship between the two footmen, I can't remember their names, but that one was just heartbreaking seeing him dance on his own at the end. So yeah, we've got two amazing love stories and this story between Lady Danbury and Violet's dad, which I thought was just hilarious, and Violet figuring it out was just really funny. And I like the way it blended them as like Queen Charlotte when she was young and Queen Charlotte now. I thought that was really interesting, and I'm going to put this one in Diamond as well. It's the one that got me really excited for the next series of Bridgerton, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. So those are my rankings. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Which one's your favourite? How much do you agree or disagree with my rankings? And if you like this video, then please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos to do with television. I'm planning on doing a review of the Bridgerton series 3 when it eventually comes out. Don't know when that will be. But yes, if you want to see more videos about TV in general, I've got loads on my channel already and I will have some out for you soon. Thank you so much for watching this video and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!